Thanks for coming in, Deepa.
Thank you for having me.
So, something new for you here. Why was this the story you wanted to tell?
Shad, it's thematically, I think it's exactly what all my other films have been about, which has been about identity, immigration, how do invisibles become visibles, and the whole conundrum of belonging. The story is different, so I like the idea of doing something different. I mean, I like the idea of guns. I'd never seen a gun in my life, so that was great. That was the first, and just I think when you get to my age, or perhaps you get to any age, you want to explore what else is there, because it can get quite boring just to sort of churn on the whole dramas, family dramas.
But I think what's interesting is that a lot of times the themes and the concerns stay constant, but the form changes.
Absolutely.
What was it about the gangster genre that you found so appealing for sort of telling these similar stories?
Well, because I think that, I mean, it might sound like a contradiction, but I think it's true that, to gain legitimacy for many immigrants is through crime. And assimilation, in fact, takes, whether it's the Irish gangs, whether it's the Italian gangs historically, to gain recognition or to feel a part of a society, that means power, money, and gangs have access to that. That's the upside for them. But the downside is, of course, that most of them end up dead. But so that way to assimilate, which is sort of a negative way to assimilate, has fascinated me. I've done many positive things about that, so I thought I'd explore that.
That's really interesting because the film chronicles that for so many different communities.
Absolutely. I mean, yes, it is about the Sikh community, the Punjabi community in Vancouver, but it could easily be about the black community. It could be about the Somalians. It could be about the Chinese, and it could be about the Japanese.
And of course, we've seen it through the history of film.
Yes,
with
absolutely.
Irish, Italians, yeah. On a less serious note, was it fun to play with the explosions and the flashy cars in this genre?
I loved. I mean, it sounds really politically incorrect, but I really enjoyed it. I mean, I've never done an action scene in my life before, so the car chases and the crashes and the explosions and AK-47s. I mean, you read about them, you don't see them, and Glocks, and it just became.
You're learning all the different guns.
Yes, and that's what's interesting. I mean, the whole point of when you make a film is that unless you learn something totally different, why make it? And I learned a lot. I mean, not only on an emotional level and the tragic level of what happens, and being a part of the same community, but also on a technical level. So that was great fun.
Okay, let's talk about the story. Who are the Biba Boys, and how did they end up in the gang world?
The Biba Boys, Biba means good in Punjabi. And, these particular guys, or guys similar to them, I think I just have to go back. I spent some time with an undercover cop who happens to be a Sikh guy and who plays, in the film. And he told me that a lot of the kids that he went to school with, Punjabi kids, half of them actually went on to join the RCMP, and half of them became gangsters. And, the more we talked, it came out that, according to him, that it had a lot to do with the parenting. And his parents actually took the time and the energy. They both worked 2 shifts a day, that after school, he and his brother had to go for hockey practice, had to do some kind of sports or engage in the community or go to the Gurdwara and serve people till they got home. The food was always there, and he had a very strong mother. And he said for a lot of the other kids who were in his class, they would come back and they would be latchkey kids and would end up on the mall, local mall, where they'd be picked up at the age of 14 or 15, say, okay, be a dope runner, dial a dope kind of a thing. So I think that's what it happens. I mean, and that's why the responsibility of the whole in our community, I'll speak about that, is yes, it rests on the community itself to look after our young, but it also rests, I think, on the larger world, on the dominant society, who are completely unaware I mean, one of the most interesting things that happened to me with this film was when it was screened for a few people here, they'd say, but Indians can't be in gangs. There's this whole sort of
Invisible
stereotype.
again.
Yeah, exactly. Invisible. Or if they are visible, they're visible as taxi drivers. Or if they get really lucky, they can be doctors, But there's nothing in between. So that's interesting.
That to me was the most interesting thing about the film is what these Biba Boys symbolized. What do you think that they represented for their community?
I know what they wanted for themselves, which
Yeah.
was power, which was style, which was visibility, which was respect, money. In that order, and all of them, if you amalgamate them, they all are about, hey, we're here, you can't ignore us. I mean, when Jeet Johar, the head of the gang, says, nobody messes with the. I was going to say the F word, but I suddenly realized you can't. Nobody messes with the Chinese since Bruce Lee came on the scene, and nobody's going to mess with us Indians since I'm here.
Yeah. It seemed to be a comment about masculinity, problems young men face, that desire for power and the different ways to attain that.
Absolutely.
And visibility, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's where the undercover cops, the whole thing about what do you do, with raging puberty is when your parents know that perhaps you should go and play hockey, something that's very basic, but that kind of understanding.
Keeps you occupied.
Keeps you focused, keeps you in a group. Because brotherhood at that age, whether you're white, black, or yellow, it doesn't matter, really is important.
Costumes are a big part of this film as well. Tell me about the style you were going for, because it seems like you made some very specific choices with the style of the Biba Boys.
Biba Boys is sort of inspired by true events, and it's an amalgamation of events that really happened and stories and characters that really existed. So when I wrote the script and we came to got into pre-production, you take off your writer's hat and put on your director's hat, and then it becomes about the image and what are the choices you make. And there was the first instant. I think we had a costume designer who said, I think they should all be wearing track pants and heavy chains. And I said, that's Boys in the Hood. It's a different. They might have the same stories, but they come from different cultures. And who are these people? For me, everything has to come from the character. And from the character, if somebody wants style and to be seen so much, they will dress a certain way. And again, Jeet says, this is our style statement, and this is who we are.
Yeah, because it's not the classic gangster aesthetic with the very dark colors, very proper suit, and it's also not the streetwear.
Yeah, so
it's something very different. Can you describe the look?
I'll call it the Biba look.
The Biba look, okay.
The Biba look. They're getting quite a lot of attention, and they're happy about that. It's the Biba. It's Walia. Waris Ahluwalia, isn't it?
Okay.
And Waris is a real style icon in the United States, and when I went to him and I said, what do you see them wearing? What do you see your character wearing, Waris? And he said, I see myself in really tight jeans and a jean jacket. And I said, absolutely not. I mean, you're not going to go there. And out of sort of negating certain styles, the Armani, Italian, dark gray, or even the Reservoir Dog look, to the streetwear and, the diamond studs in the ear. And
so process of elimination.
A process of elimination got to all about character. Who wore what.
And these are tailored suits, but they're bright,
exactly.
They're colorful.
They're all colorful. They're in blues, and and they all complement each other. And it's about pocket squares, and they wanted to look stylish. Now it's become nobody wears socks, but we shot the film a year ago, so I feel maybe I should change my career or something.
Yeah. I really love that in this movie that, at least to me, seemed to be so much about young men and their desires to be seen and to have power. Dress is so important.
Why is that important?
Because it's part of being seen. But I just thought that was interesting. It's often ignored as a part of sort of masculinity. is dress.
And I think that maybe that's why it's interesting. I think the world view is shifting, that women can make gangster films, that men can express their masculinity and wear colors that they were not supposed to wear, quote unquote. And I think that's really healthy.
What were you exploring with the female characters in this film?
You know, of course, when I started making the film, I've always been a big fan of the gangster genre, and I thought, let me see, and I was very conscious about being a woman doing a gangster film in the beginning till I got about into I think a week before we started shooting, and then I realized no, I just have to let go of that. I am a woman. Nothing's going to change, so I should just not try to be overly womanly, or to think that I have to be a feminist in the way I look at my characters.
You need to make a comment.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I just threw all of that out of the window. And my approach to the female characters became Deepa's approach, the director's approach to the female characters, which is they all have an arc. They have something to do other than look pretty. They are mothers, but they come from a cultural background which is a patriarchal society, but the mothers are still important. And the love interest too wasn't just, Sarah channeling Michelle Pfeiffer, but who's the ultimate blonde in Scarface, right?
Yes.
But I think she did more. She did channel her, but she did more than that.
I didn't ask you, who were your touchstones for this film in terms of gangster films? Or outside of the genre?
There was there's a wonderful Japanese director in the 60s called Suzuki, and he made these gangster films. He made about 5 of them, which are all about style. They're different, but they are stylish. Not the same clothes, of course, but it's about how do you take a genre and turn it on its head. And he did that. So he was, I think, one of the most, and Kitano too. I mean, so it's the Japanese filmmakers. Goodfellas, I thought, was just hilarious. I think a lot of the humor in Biba Boys is, it comes from our culture, it's really inherent in our culture.
I wanted to ask you about the humor.
Yeah.
Because humor is a part of the genre, but the humor in Biba Boys
is very particular. Yeah, and because, I think what makes, all genre films are similar. They have the beginning, middle, and end like all films, but you have a group of kids or men who get together, they kill whoever they have to, and then there's redemption. So all of them are similar. But I think what makes some films different than others is because of the different cultures they come from. So you have Goodfellas, which is so rooted in the Italian culture, or you have Outrage, which is so rooted in the Yakuza culture.
Yes.
And then you have Beeba Boys, which is so rooted in the Punjabi culture.
Can you describe that sense of humor? How would you convey it?
It's it's all our jokes are based, like the Canadian jokes are all about newfies. In India, all the really, really funny ones, and I mean are based on Sikh jokes. So it became. I mean, if you have a white person telling the same Sikh joke, it can be quite offensive. Mm-hmm. But if you have a Sikh guy with a turban which Manny is, with a turban and a beard telling them, I think it becomes very funny, and it's all cultural. Mm.
I just spoke with one of the stars of the film The Warriors, 1979 classic, and again we were talking about the same themes of brotherhood. And I need to ask you an aspect of the Indo-Canadian community. These gangs, it's true to life. Mm-hmm. It's not exactly flattering. Mm-hmm. Why was it important for you to show this side of the community?
It's when you show a negative or aspect, because it's just an aspect. It doesn't talk about the whole community being gangsters, because of course it's not. But if it's disconcerting for the community. It's difficult for the community, especially if a community is trying to be accepted in a white dominant culture, which we are. And so suddenly this is an aberration, because all of us would really just not like to make waves and be accepted. And if we have aspects of ourselves which are perhaps negative, we don't want anybody. We want to be liked. It's like being the first new kid in the class. I mean, that's what it is, right?
Yeah.
But I think that this is a real problem. we do have a problem with youth. We do have a problem with gangs. We do have a problem with, I mean, these are figures, I'm not making it up, that more than 100 young men have died in the last, 5 or 6 years, have been murdered.
In Vancouver area?
In the Vancouver area. And those are high numbers. And I think that unless we talk about it, I think we will never, as a community, actually do something about it, because it is our responsibility, as it is the responsibility of everybody else. I don't think a film can change the world, but I think definitely a film can start a dialogue.
As someone who's made very political films in the past, people might be looking for political messages in this film. What do you hope they take away?
Oh, I think if I say it, you're going to laugh. Promise you won't laugh.
I promise I won't laugh.
Crime doesn't pay. He laughed.
I didn't laugh.
You laughed.
No, but that's the message, right?
That's the message, yeah.
Thank you so much, Deepa.
Thank you, Shad.